what made you want to be an equipment manager?
I've always been a big fan of hockey. Growing up, I've always been kind of heavy, so I realized quick that I wasn't gonna make it playing. So my buddy was an equipment manager for a junior hockey team in Texas, and I always thought it was pretty cool. And we were all working at a pro shop at the time, and I kind of just stumbled into a job right down the road for a team. And first year had no idea what I was getting into, and crazy to think, almost 10 years later, I'm in Hartford, Connecticut, from Texas, and working for a AAA team. But it's just the love of the game. I think a lot of kids nowadays realize that they have to make it to the NHL playing when there's other routes you can take. So I just was lucky enough to take a quick path on a route as an
Yeah.
equipment manager.
Yeah, I don't think equipment managers get enough credit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like the stuff they do behind the scenes, like to make things possible, is like crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you said, it's definitely not to be that guy and say they don't get enough appreciation, but it's definitely like you're like the unsung hero, like, first one there, last one to leave 90% of the time. Like for instance, this weekend we leave Thursday. We get to Utica or Rochester. All the guys get to go to the hotel and get dinner and chill, or we get to we go to the rink and unload out the trailer, unpack their bags. Like the guys very rarely touch their bags from a road trip. um, you know, it's a grind, and say then we go from Rochester to Utica, and the bus got there before there's a car towing the trailer, so we get there an hour before the trailer gets there. So we're just sitting there in Utica. It's like 2 degrees, so cold, and in the parking lot waiting an hour. And so by the time we unload all the gear and get to the hotel to go to bed, it's 3:30, and we're getting back up at 7:30 to get to eat breakfast and go to the rink the next morning. So it's insane.
Yeah, and that's just the schedule stuff too, Mark, right? Like guys get called up, sent down all the time. You got to go to the rink at random hours, get them packed, get them shipped off, and all that jazz too.
Yeah, Dan got to witness that firsthand as we're playing Call of Duty Thanksgiving Day. I was lucky enough to go over to his parents' house for Thanksgiving, having no family up there, and we get home and we're firing up some Warzone, and I get a phone call it had to have been 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and they're like, "Hey, like, I'm getting called up." And I was like, "No fucking way. Like, it's Thanksgiving Day. Like, come on." And he's like, No. Like, I'm serious. And sure enough, I have to pick him up, get his gear, and then drop him off at his house with his gear. And it's just a mess. And it's even getting worse now with COVID. We had, they just implemented the taxi squad again with the NHL. So it's just been a day after day, like, train wreck doesn't even describe it, with, guys getting on the COVID list and the guys getting regular injured. So New York took 6 guys, I think, 2 weeks ago, and so that's just a domino effect for us. Then we end up calling all of our guys up from Jacksonville, and we don't have that many guys down there, and we end up having to sign PTOs, and they have to come up and get tested. Well, one of the goalies that came up literally drove overnight and stopped in Hartford, came into the rink, tested positive, had to turn around and go right back home. So, and you have everything set up for that guy as he's driving, and then you have to turn around and basically throw away the guy's nameplate and sew a new one from scratch for the next victim that's getting called up. So it's been nuts. This past 2 weeks been pretty crazy.
Yeah, just last night, actually, I was watching the Rangers, and the whole fourth line was taxi squad players. It was Barron, Brodzinski, and
Gettinger, right?
Gettinger,
Yeah. It's domino effect. So after the game in Rochester, we get a message from our GM, and he's like, "Hey, 2 guys are getting called up from Hartford to go to the taxi squad." So here it is, 10:30 at night in Rochester. We're loading the bus to go to Utica, and we only have 23 guys, and 2 guys get called up. So we have 19 skaters, or 18 skaters and 3 goalies. So now we're skating with no extra forwards or D. So, if anyone were to get symptoms that next day in Utica end up testing positive, we would have to play with a man down because you can't get anyone in town quick enough to get a physical test, to get tested, get a physical, and then, you know, get ready to play the game. So it's crazy.
Do you have the same COVID protocols as the players, or is it different for you guys?
It's pretty much the same. This year's not as strict as last year. Last year we couldn't do anything. We had to, if we got food, it had to be through the drive-through or takeout. And then we were stuck at home, realistically doing nothing. This year, you know, it's recommended we do the same. And right now, unfortunately, with the spike and everything, they kind of went back to that way, but it's, I wouldn't say, you know, as harsh as it was last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty, like, on the road, we literally went to the hotel, or went to the rink, went to the hotel. Like, the team got us a meal for dinner, and then we just hung out in a room and had a few beers and watched the Rangers game, and then, like, went to bed, woke up the next morning, breakfast and lunch at the, you know, breakfast at the hotel, went to the rink, back to the hotel for lunch, and then the game, and there's a meal just before we get back on the bus. So it's pretty, like, kind of crappy, because a few years ago, you know, we go on the road and it's kind of like it's like a getaway from everything. You know, you go out and your responsibilities aren't as much because the home team does all the laundry for you. So, you know, you go out and you go get dinner at a restaurant and find some dive bar with, you know, $2 Bud Lights in the middle of some shitty town in upstate New York. But, you know, it's just different. It's crazy.
Okay, next question. What's the weirdest moment you've had being an equipment manager?
Weirdest moment. The only one that I would probably, the only one I can think of right now that kind of, I don't know if it was weird, but it was just kind of crazy, where I was actually in Maine, and I'm on the bench right after warm-ups. You know, we're going out for the first period, and our trainer, we have headsets on, our earpieces, and he goes, hey, Rip, like, you know, our goal, like, you know, Lecouvi's arm fell off. And I was like, you know, that, to me, that sounds like a trainer's problem. Like, it sounds like, you know, a medical. And he's like, no, it was chest protector. So here it is, 2 minutes before the game's about to start. I'm running across the ice, radioing to one of our game day helpers, like, hey, you're working the, you know, start of the game. I gotta sew this guy's chest protector back. And you know, goalies are always superstitious. So, you know, as the national anthem is blaring through the loudspeakers, I'm in my office sewing this chest protector, his arm back to the chest protector, and he's like watching me like a hawk. And unfortunately, he, you know, as we're getting it back on him, the play starts, and he missed. I think it was like a minute. I think that the backup goalie obviously had to start, so maybe 10 seconds in the game they score, and you know, it gets quiet, and you're like, oh, okay, like, maybe, you know, something happened. And we're out there waiting for him to go back on, as, you know, the play is going, and they score again. So it's like 5 minutes into the game, down 2-0. You know, I'm absolutely sweating bullets because, you know, you're panicking, and it's not even 5 minutes into the game. It's maybe 2 or 3. And, you know, he is now just even more, you know, mind screwed, and he's going back in. I think we ended up losing like 6-2, and, you know, the backup goalie ended up going back in after the starter was just so rattled, and it was a mess. It was honestly the weirdest thing that's ever happened so far.
It's pretty crazy. What's the best part of being an equipment manager?
I honestly think it's the day-to-day experience. Like, there's no job like it. There's no, like, I mean, there's like a set schedule, but, like, you know, when I go in, it's, you know, if I get there at 7 or if I get there at 7:30, like, it doesn't necessarily totally matter. I get up pretty loose on that end, and, you know, like, you hang out with all these guys who are, like, you know, like you said, playing National League games, and, you know, up and coming stars, and you don't think of them. Like, to me, like, it's just like my first year we had Shesty, like, you know, I shoot him like he makes a post on Instagram and I chirp him for it. You know, he comments right back. Like, you don't think anything of it, that, you know, he's a National League superstar goalie. And you know, we go to camp and we haven't seen him in 2 years, and, you know, he sees me and he's like, oh, like, you know, we call each other fat bitch in Russian. So, you know, I say it to him, he's dying laughing. And, you know, like Panarin, who I've never said anything to, but, few words, and he starts dying laughing, and Shesty says to him, and he's like, oh yeah, I taught him a few things. It's funny, like just the day-to-day locker room banter, and just those friendships you have of with the players. You don't think of them as just another guy. Everyone wakes up and puts their pants on the same way.
Crazy to think about, like guys like Shesty, like really making a name for himself in the league this year, and then like you like having a relationship with him like while he was developing, and now he's just like a superstar.
It's crazy. Like you said, you don't think about it. Even some of the guys that are like bubble guys like Brodzinski, and a few years ago Phil DiGiuseppe. Like me and DG got along super well. Like during the pandemic, the only things that were open were golf courses, and like we had keys to the rink. So for a little bit there, like we were playing roller hockey at the XL Center on the concrete, just because he had nothing to do. And then we were golfing every other day, and he's a pretty sick golfer. And as I'm shanking 15 balls in the woods, like it's just like like then you don't think anything of it. Like it's just golfing with Dano. But this guy, got games in the National League.
Mark needed my help for something. I can't remember if it was helping out picking pucks after warm-ups or doing something with the locker room, when they went out. And I'm down in his office and we're waiting. And then he goes, oh yeah, I'll be right back. And he goes out of his office, he turns the corner, and he yelled something, and all the boys got wild up, for the game, and like, yeah, Rip, let's go do it. And then he walked in, yeah, sorry guys. I just had to get the boys ready for the game, just had to get them up and running. So I've seen it firsthand. It was pretty fun, to be able to see that side of it, because they loved him. They really did. He had a really good relationship with a lot of those guys, and it's great to see that he still has those relationships today.
That's so sick. Like I watch those guys on TV, and then like I look up to them, and you just have a relationship with them. It's just wild to me. Like,
yeah, it's like my first year coming to camp, like, like you work the minors, like I said, the single, like SPHL, ECHL, like there's no, like, not that there's no like unreal hockey players or people that are like make that name, but like my first, or when I was in Maine, like, New York or Hartford, whatever you want to say, sent down Sean Day to Hartford, and Michael Pizzetta from Laval got sent down to us, and like both of those guys played NHL games this year. So like you don't think anything of it, especially in the ECHL, and it's like that's sick. Like you were realistically at one point, on the weekend having a beer with those guys, like no questions asked. And then I came to Hartford, and those guys were, Sean Day was here for a little bit, and then he ended up going to Tampa Bay, and like seeing like being like friendly with that guy, and like never really thinking like, oh, this guy's gonna make it. Like Sean Day was disgusting as a hockey player. Like watching him play, like best skater I've ever seen, and seeing him like going to take his rookie or that first lap, and he's smiling ear to ear, like it's like, not that I get goosebumps, but it's like it's cool to see it. And even like for me, like you said, you look up to some of these guys. Like when I walked into the Rangers locker room for the first time, like Hank's just sitting there. Oh, hey man, like I'm Hendrik Lundqvist, and I'm like, and me, I'm like, yeah, like I know, like I've watched you since you started playing, but it's cool. And just someone like the guys that from my first year there, and then to now, like they still remember you from camp. So like, you see Kreider, and he walks in, he goes, oh, what's up, Rip? And I'm like, oh man, like you remember me. Like it's pretty cool. Like you said, you look up to so many players, and then you just read, like you never, like you don't think they're normal, but like they really are. It's pretty cool.
This next question has to do with players too. So who's the funniest player you've been around?
Oh man. So this year we have Anthony Bateto. He's from Long Island. He's got that Long Island accent. It is hysterical. He's unfortunately not, he's down here for his sake, but for our sake, it's awesome because he's always making jokes. We're laughing with each other, and some of the stuff he says is just, extraordinary. It's so funny, and it's, just fun to be around. Like, and that, like going back, like you said about what's the best part of being an equipment manager, it's like those kind of days, all the jokes, the banter, all the comments that you can say or that are said in the locker room that, if you say at a normal job, like you make a joke, like people are looking at you like, what did you just say? Like you called me a plug, like what? And you know, it's fun. But he's by far the funniest guy I've ever met.
I remember seeing his first goal as a Ranger. It was like he like dangled through like a couple forwards. I forgot
Yeah,
who was it. It was against the
yeah,
Capitals or something, but yeah, he's a good player.
yeah, he really is, and you know, like I said, like he's always like lighthearted, so he's always in the room laughing and having a good time. And when it comes to game time, like everyone looks up to him. I think I think he just had his 200th AHL game, but he's played a decent amount in the National League, where like, you know, guys look up to him, and you know, he's, you know, out there helping the younger guys with things, and you know, guys go up to him and ask him questions and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. And like you said, guys like that who you don't expect to pull out moves like Adam Fox, you know, now you see it and you're like, oh man, like that's so sick, and you know, like that's my buddy. So
that's crazy. All right, Dano, we got some questions for you now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, I like hearing Ripper's stories. All good stuff.
So, what made you get into coaching after a Hall of Fame career?
Well, I don't know if it's a Hall of Fame career, but the number should definitely be in the rafters. But I don't know. I think right after I graduated college, I did a U18 team with a buddy of mine, and I just want to stay involved in the game. You know, I wasn't sure if it was the high school level, if it was youth level, but you know, I just wanted to stay involved. You know, and I was up in Bangor. I think it was a U16 team. Did that for a couple of years, and then when I moved back down here, my brother at the time was part of the high school team, and his senior year there was an opening, and so I met with head coach Norm Gani at the time, and Jake Brown was the assistant, and we just met and had a conversation, and just wanted to get into it that way. And I was assistant with the defenseman, you know, that year, and then a few years after that, and then obviously the head coach last year. So really, it was just trying to stay involved in the game, you know, and just trying to share the knowledge that I was able to learn.
Think we'll get back into coaching?
Yeah, come out of retirement.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm taking a year off. You know, we're seeing what's going to happen, but you know, maybe some point down the road, if the right situation pops up, you know, it might be the high school level, it might go youth. I don't know, but you never know. We'll see.
So next question. I actually thought of this one on the spot. So a couple of years ago, after a high school game, I remember you told me that Carter Hart is going to be the next Carey Price. Do you regret saying that?
I don't. I think the Flyers have a lot that they need to do to help out with that comment. I think they'll do me right in the long run, but he's a good goalie. If you look at his resume coming up through junior and with the Canadian national teams, like he's got a huge potential and upside to him. So hopefully he can do that in Orange. But as we've seen with Flyer goaltenders, they typically have more success when they leave. But hopefully he can prove me right with that one. Well, I mean, when you use a curve like the PM9, and I know it hasn't really made its way into like the pro hockey world yet, but when you have like the PM9, you can do a lot on the backhand. You guys have seen it, you know, in drills and whatnot. And,
I have.
You've seen the skill set that I can bring, you know, to the game, you know. But when you talk about hard backhands, I always go to that alumni game that we played against each other, where I think it might have been, I can't remember if it was Mike or if it was Owen Denbo, but I grabbed out on a dump, grabbed the puck coming off the boards, went to the net, went backhand, and then over Pete's shoulder. And that wasn't even as hard as it can be, but I'm sure you guys remember that one.
I don't remember that one. I don't know.
Must have happened in your dreams, Dano.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ask Peter, he'll tell you.
All right, last question for Dano.
Yeah.
How does it feel to have terrible accuracy in Warzone and get carried by Mark?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things like, you know, like you saw the other day, you're Patrick Maroon with 3 Stanley Cup rings, you're tripping Marchand, you know, and Marchand's giving you a lot of shit, but he's only got 1, right? So would you rather be Brad Marchand with all like the accolades and whatnot, or Patty Maroon, you know, with the 3 dubs? So, you know, I think Mark brings a lot of good things to the Warzone team. I think there's a lot of things he can work on, but my .78 KD helps the team in a lot of ways because I do spot. I'm pointing guys out, marking them so these guys can do the dirty work, but my name may not necessarily get into the paper.
I don't know about that.
The only
All
dirty work Dan does in Warzone is steal everyone's fucking loot.
I am known to collect the loot, so in the event a teammate needs it, I'm able to give it to him.
Oh my God.
Money for buybacks, loadouts, things like that. I'm all about the team, boys. You know that about me. It's all about the team.
Yeah.
Make sure we get the wins. We'll come in 40th place, and Mark is like, "Oh, dude, I got like 6 kills to year 2." Well, we came in 40th place, Mark. It's really irrelevant, But we're working on it. But we have a good time with it.
For sure.